Bublynn, coming in, crushing this art. All right, we're back at it, and I wanted to talk a little bit about how you can utilize your spirit or your individuality to make a difference in the world, and basically how that begins, right? So, a lot about individuality, or a lot about you, or a lot about who you want to be, or your dreams, right? They're very limited by influence, or by currency, or by work, or by substance, right? Like, there's so much you got to get or gain or go through or do in order to express yourself, right? And this is where awareness is really important, you know?
Yeah.
So this is where, like, no, you're totally good. No, this is where, like, if you're trying to get something done or accomplish a dream, you can't just be like fully in your dream. You still have to work with the world in order to express that. And that's just because, for example, we live with a body made of earth, you know what I mean? We live in structures and like things that root down to like concrete patterns and structures and routines in earth, like what we think of as like meta earth, like things that are just like beyond real. Like, for example, like organizations, like, you know what I mean, like the spirit, the head of an organization versus everything around it, like solar system, like atom, you know, all these things have like this sort of central thing, like you, your body, your mind, your spirit, your intention, your dream, you, and then, you know what I mean, everything off of that, your organs, you know what I mean, XYZ. So either way, a lot of what comes down to expressing your spirit has to go through working through nature, or working through yin, or working through the patterns, the structures, the routines that this realm inhabits in order to do you. So, like, for example, you may have an amazing dream, you may have an amazing vision, or you may have like an awful one, right? But if you think that this should just be like in the world, like you don't have to utilize nature, you don't have to utilize yin, or you don't have to utilize anything in order to get there, like this is just something that should be granted to you, then basically what you're doing is you're lost in your own light, your own potential illusion, right? Like, maybe it could help people, right? But it's like, if you don't figure out how to utilize nature, or really gain enough influence, gain enough substance in order to build that, in order to make that happen, then it just won't be, right? And that's where it comes down to you just understanding how nature works, like how the world works, you know, like having a proper understanding of like, or having a solid philosophy of life, right? So anyway, so that's just a little bit about like understanding when you can express yourself, understanding how you have to gain influence in this world, and this just comes to learning so that you can gain power. And this is just like, for example, like without any knowledge, right, you can get so far with just power, right? If you start like just focusing on strength, just focusing on dominance, you know what I mean? Eventually you will find yourself in rooms where people just do what you say because, like, you know what I mean, you're top dog. But like it's just very internal. Anytime you look behind your back, this is where you start getting in situations where people are trying to cut you down now because you cut them down. You know, you didn't respect what they had to give, right? So this is where we come into how nature can help, right? Like how relationships can help, how having a group behind you can help, how having like all your organs work for you can help, how if your workers, if of your corporation, of your dream, if all of its legs or all of its points are solid and are tended for, that it's going to be a more solid structure, it's going to be able to more efficiently express its purpose, right? So anyway, so yeah, so if you're trying to figure out how to express your vision, you have to look to the world and nature in order to figure out how to do that, right? Because there are certain waves of influence, or certain patterns and routines, certain structures that are just in reality. Like, for example, bullshit, right? This, I feel like, is true, and you can just see this in a lot of different ways. Like the fact that currency, for example, in like globally is a loan to governments. So, for example, when a government wants to utilize currency internationally, they go through like the Federal Reserve systems and like the different channels that they have. At least in America, it's called the Federal Reserve. I don't know, like globally, I guess what their name would be, but they go through them in order to take out a loan to you use that money. So basically they took out, let's say, like, oh, we need like like 50 trillion in circulation. They're like, the bank's like, all right, so that's gonna be, you know what I mean, you're gonna owe me 50 trillion, but like, I need an extra 5 trillion, and that's going to increase as you don't pay me, right? So this is how people end up becoming frightened that, oh my God, we're in debt as a country, XYZ, we're not making up enough money. Well, this is because we're starting from a place where we need to be catering to the banks or the international systems to begin with. Like, we would need to be like, oh, now that we have this money, let's see what we can do to the banks so that they give us, that they alleviate our debt, right? Because we can't give our money back because we're just trying to utilize that as currency, right? So what we have to do is utilize, like, if we want to make a relationship proper here, right, we have to utilize our substance, cater to the bank and say, hey, do you want this? They'll be like, oh, yeah, that's worth like $1 trillion. I'll take $1 trillion off what you owe me, you know what I mean? Until eventually we have our money. But we're not doing that. And what we do is frighten our people into thinking that we're in debt and money is like this scarce and really valuable thing, right? But either way, so that's just one way of how, like, we could have the corporate leader working with the under like the work hounds, or like, you know what I mean, like the work dogs, like the guys making the corporation run, the guys getting paid, the guys chasing the dough, not the guys making the dough. So that is just kind of one example of bullshit. Like, how if we rely on the system, on the current patterns and routines, it's just going to get harder and harder and harder for us just to do us, right? So this is where, like, we got to understand we have to be working towards independence, right? And that's just one example of bullshit. And I think the more you look into government and the more you look into authority as it's instantiated today, no diss on authority, no diss on government, right? I feel like if it was as it is expressed, or as its face is, right, transparent, maybe this could be potentially helpful, right? But I think in a lot of situations now, we have monopolizers at the top, which is low-key, like tricksters that just want to like keep that and utilize that. And until we can get soul groups or families top bottom, right, instead of like trickster or power hungry, like low-key monopolizing type people top bottom, you know what I mean, trying to just stay at the top, we're not going to be at a place that's not full of bullshit, right? And so this is where we're at a phase where we're learning from low-key, we're learning from trickster stuff in order to figure out, like, what system will work, like, how can we do this, right? Like, it's just a mental fuck right now that we got to learn and figure out a way out of, right? But either way, so that is just an example of a pattern or routine that we're stuck in because of a monopolizing spirit at the overarching humanoid levels of our existence, right? This is where we get bullshit, right? And so now that we know, no matter what way we're working with the system, there's going to be bullshit. That's where it comes down to acceptance, right? That is the nature, right? So we have to work through that nature in order to gain substance, in order to have enough to express ourselves or to found ourselves, right? So this is where we have to accept that, yeah, we did allow ourselves to get lost in a sea of shit, right? But we are there, right? We accept that, right? And now, from that sea of shit, we have to figure out how to get our own land, gain independence, not look towards money, not look towards government, right? Be our own government, have our own stuff, look towards the land, look towards earth, not look up, look in, because when we look up, we get monopolizers, and when we look in, we finally get our spirits able to express themselves because we have our own structure and security. So that's just a little bit of philosophy. Hey, but look, keep your minds up, be lucky, you know what I mean? Like, do good. Hey, be lucky. Bublynn, Sitra, Beach, out.